speaker management setup.
Welcome to the regular meeting of the Public Health and Safety Committee for September 25th, 2024. My name is Jason Chavez, and I am the chair of this committee. Before we begin the meeting, I want to offer a friendly reminder to all members, staff, and the public that these meetings are broadcast live to enable greater public participation. These broadcasts include real-time captioning as a further method to increase the accessibility of our proceedings to the community. Therefore, all speakers need to be mindful of the rate of their speech so that our captioners can fully capture and transcribe all comments for the broadcast. We ask all speakers to moderate the speed and clarity of their comments. I'll also note that the Charter Commission has a meeting in this room after us, so we will need to conclude by 3:30 p.m. to allow time for transition. At this time, I will ask the clerk to call the roll so we can verify the presence of a quorum for this meeting.
Councilmember Payne.
Present.
Rainville is absent. Ellison is absent. Palmisano. Present. Vice Chair Wansley.
Present.
Chair Chavez.
Present.
We have 4 members present.
Let the record reflect that we have a quorum. Members, Councilmember Rainville reached out to us. He will be here around 2 p.m. And then Councilmember Ellison reached out ahead of time saying he was not going to be here today and couldn't make it. With that, the agenda for today's meeting is before us. There are 7 items on today's consent agenda. Item number 1 is setting a public hearing for October 9, 2024 to consider an ordinance amending the Health and Sanitation Public Swimming Pool Code to align with state law. Item number 2 is authorizing an ongoing MOU with the United States Capitol Police to reimburse for support occurring locally in the Minneapolis Police Department's jurisdiction. Item number 3 is approving a legislative directive for a comprehensive overview regarding the former Navigation Center, steps necessary to establish a new location, and the use of city-owned and publicly owned land as a tool to address unsheltered homelessness. Item number 4 is accepting a grant from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, to provide funding for the Minneapolis Health Department's racial and ethnic approaches to community health, the REACH. Item number 5 is authorizing a submittal of a grant application for the Edward Byron Memorial Justice Assistance Grant to the United States Department of Justice to be divided equally between the Police Department and the City Attorney's Office. Item number 6 is authorizing the Minneapolis Police Department to enter into a 5-year joint powers agreement with the Department of Public Safety Bureau of Criminal Apprehension for MPD to conduct state and federal fingerprint-based background checks as required by the FBI's Criminal Justice Information System Security Policy. Services Security Policy. And then item number 7 is accepting a grant from the Byron Discretionary Community Project grant in the amount of $2.5 million for the City of Minneapolis Community Violence Interrupter Program. Members, are there any discussions on these items? Vice Chair Wansley.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. I just wanted to bring attention to item number 7, which is the community violence grants related to violence interrupter programs. And I know I have a legislative directive coming back in the next coming weeks to overview a multitude of things around how OCS leadership is handling, ongoing mismanagement issues that's been brought to our attention for several months now. But one piece of that legislative directive asks, what professional development opportunities are being extended to staff within the Neighborhood Safety Department, especially since we're entering into contracts with nation-leading technical assistance providers when it comes to works around, violence prevention and gun violence overall. And I'm raising this because I was concerned about the framing of the violence intervention RCA language that's part of this file. And I did also get a chance to take a look at the original grant application that was written by the former Neighborhood Safety Department, also known as the Office of Violence Prevention Director, Josh Peterson, and notice a stark difference. And I'll just read one particular sentence that brought some flags for me from the RCA. It says the $2.5 million grant will help with a major issue, the Minneapolis Police Department. It will help with a major issue the Minneapolis Police Department / MPD is facing, a serious shortage of staff worsened by the events following George Floyd's murder. This shortage makes it hard for the city to handle gun violence. And I raised that sentence because that is not in alignment with why we have a violence intervention model. Nowhere in the violence intervention model best practices, as we even learned about a couple weeks ago from nation-leading experts on this work, ever talked about this as being a substitute for MP or for police. And the way that this frames it, it shows that the only reason why we're pursuing this is because our police department has a staffing shortage, and that was never the origin story behind our violence intervention work at the city. So in light of that, I really hope that, the legislative directive comes back and shows that a lot of the staff within the neighborhood safety department, which I know many of them are new, are getting that training so that the language that they're writing in the RCAs, because it matters how we talk about this work, and especially to potential funders of this work, to make sure that the language that they're using is consistent and is in alignment with best practices that it's been created by those national subject matter experts that we are contracting with. So I just wanted to flag the concerning language around that, and hopeful that my LD will show that there's more training opportunities being extended to staff, so we don't have this type of framing in these type of RCAs going forward. But with that, I'm glad to see there's additional funding that's going to be relegated to our violence interrupters, because they're such a crucial asset to our city's public safety system and towards our gun violence prevention strategies and making sure we're reducing gun violence all across our communities. So I'm glad this is funding that's going to a program that has shown great success.
Thank you. Additionally, not only am I going to move approval of all these 7 items, but I'll also, with that motion, postpone item number 8, the Green Career Exploration Program report, to our meeting on October 23rd, 4 weeks from today. And we will postpone item number 9, the Homegrown Minneapolis Initiative report, to our next meeting in 2 weeks, October 9th, 2024. We worked on these timelines with the health department and our city staff. Do colleagues have questions? Again, items 1 through 7, and then the postponement of item number 8 and number 9. Great. So with that, clerks, the motion on the table is approving item 1 through 7 and postponing item number 8 and number 9 to the dates I mentioned respectively. And if you can call the roll on that, please.
Councilmember Payne.
Aye.
Palmisano.
No on item 3, aye on the rest.
Okay. Vice Chair Wansley.
Aye.
And Chair Chavez.
Aye.
So we have, apologies, this is not my strong suit. We have 4 ayes on everything except item 3, in which we have 3 ayes and 1 nay.
Great. Thank you so much. And then colleagues, we are about to lose quorum. So what I'm going to ask our clerks to help us with the particular language, but we will move to recess until 2 p.m. where we will reconvene to make sure that we have quorum to be able to proceed with our following presentations. And for the public to know, the presentations we'll have when we reconvene at 2 p.m. will be the analysis of other city policies and regulations that relate to zoning, licensing, operation, and regulation of sexually oriented businesses or services. We'll have a Minneapolis Tree Advisory Commission annual report. We'll have a quick Safe and Thriving Community Actions Plan update, and then we'll have a small little update from our Community Outreach and Safety Program, and we'll be out of here by 3:30 p.m. But we'll reconvene at 2 p.m. When we have quorum. Thank you. Seeing no objection, that is the goal. 1 minute warning. Come back. At this time, I will ask the clerk to call the roll to verify the presence of a quorum.
Councilmember Payne is absent. Rainville.
Present.
Ellison is absent. Palmisano.
Present.
Vice Chair Wansley.
Present.
Chair Chavez.
Present.
We have 4 members present.
Thank you. Next up, we have 2 items that oh, wait, no, just kidding. With that, we'll move on to our 4 remaining discussion items. Again, a reminder that the Charter Commission has a meeting in this room after us, so we will need to conclude by 3:30 p.m. Our first discussion item is receiving and filing an analysis of regulations of adult bathhouses. I'll invite Ashley from the Auditor's Office to give us that report. Thank you. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Chavez and members of the committee. My name is Ashley Jook, and I am from the City Auditor's Policy and Research Division, and I'm here to present on regulations of adult bathhouses and adult sex venues. On June 20th, this committee directed Policy and Research to complete a national landscape analysis of other cities' policies and regulations related to the zoning, licensing, operation, and regulation of sexually oriented businesses or services. We were also directed to identify relevant policies and ordinances in the city of Minneapolis and to assess the feasibility of any potential changes. For the purposes of this presentation, as well as the accompanying report, 3 different business types have been identified and defined. A bathhouse is any place open to the public where any person engages in saunas or baths of any kind for the purposes of bathing or relaxation. An adult bathhouse meets the definition of bathhouse and either 1, restricts minors in the building or a portion of the building by reason of age, or 2, permits patrons to engage in sexual activities on the premises or to watch other patrons doing so. An adult sex venue is any commercial establishment that is operated where the main purpose of the establishment is to encourage patrons to engage in or to watch other patrons engaging in sexual activities on the premises. Common terminology includes sexual encounter establishments, swingers clubs, and sex clubs. These definitions were to establish a common understanding of the terminology while reviewing this issue. It is not, however, a recommendation for how these terms should be defined moving forward with any potential regulatory language. Moving into reviewing cities with adult bathhouses and/or adult sex venues. Several cities allow adult bathhouses to operate without special permitting or regulation beyond general business requirements related to whatever amenities they offer, such as food, a pool, alcohol, fitness center, etc. These cities include Duluth, Chicago, Seattle, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, and Orlando. It's worth noting that when I spoke to these cities, none identified any issues specific to these types of businesses. Next, some cities have adult bathhouse or adult sex venue definitions and some accompanying regulations. St. Paul, for example, has a license for both a bathhouse and an adult bathhouse, defined as restricted by age, but no unlawful acts are allowed. However, they have never issued an adult bathhouse license, and they've only issued 1 bathhouse license in the 1980s, which was canceled in the late 1990s. In Los Angeles and San Diego, they include these businesses as part of their adult entertainment regulations. They are included in Palm Springs' adult-oriented business regulations, but they add some extra regulations unique for adult sex venues, including requirements for providing information and education on the ways to reduce STIs. Safe sex supplies must be made available. Employees are trained on STI prevention, and there's also specific sanitary guidelines. However, since the adult sex venue portion of that ordinance was enacted only last year, they are still in the process of creating the sanitation guidelines. San Francisco, however, has some quite expansive regulations. Adult bathhouses fall under their adult sex venue ordinance as well as their public bathhouse ordinance. These regulations have a complex history, with most bathhouses being closed in the mid-1980s following a lawsuit citing those establishments as a public health nuisance due to the AIDS epidemic. The lawsuit was dismissed in 1989, and in 1997, their Department of Health adopted minimum standards for operating sex clubs, commercial sex venues, and parties. These minimum standards focus on safety and public health, including specifics related to club rules, condoms and safe sex materials, monitoring, staff training, lighting, rooms, education, and required wash-up and waste disposal facilities. San Francisco is expecting to release updated minimum standards by the end of this year, which will reflect innovations in healthcare since the standards were originally created. They are also in the process of addressing conflicts which exist between the adult sex venue and the public bathhouse ordinances, primarily relating to prohibitions around locked doors and other privacy concerns. Additionally, San Francisco Health Department staff stressed the need for common language and having clear distinctions between these types of businesses, which is not only helpful for city staff, but also business owners and patrons. San Francisco police and health staff agreed that violations unique to adult sex venues are rather uncommon, and that businesses who go through the process to be legal adult sex venues don't risk their permits violating codes. They're aware of this especially because it is a highly political issue, and businesses know that their businesses could become illegal at any point. Staff in San Francisco from many departments are still meeting to discuss ongoing concerns around the possibility of needing to guard against underage patrons, ensuring if sex workers are present regardless of legality, that no human trafficking occurs, and ensuring patrons are not too intoxicated to consent. While sale or consumption of alcohol or other substances on the premise is prohibited, that doesn't stop people from consuming substances prior to attending these venues. While San Francisco has not assessed these venues to determine if they increase instances of communicable diseases, they said the venues have been great partners for addressing communicable diseases, most recently with the monkeypox outbreak. The open adult sex venue helped the health department reach the LGBTQIA+ community. According to staff, this resulted in limiting the spread, with San Francisco having a low impact rate for Mpox compared to other cities. Health department staff also provides education and outreach to these adult sex venues for staff, owners, and patrons relating to safe sex best practices. They emphasize that San Francisco has a large LGBTQIA+ community, and their goal is not to assert a policy that restrains people's personal life, but to equip them with the tools they need to be safe. On to relevant city and state regulations. Currently in Minneapolis, adult bathhouses and adult sex venues are prohibited due to a few ordinances, including the prohibition of high-risk sexual conduct in commercial spaces, indecent conduct in public spaces, and the definition of a disorderly house. Other codes in licenses and business regulations, health and zoning may need to be amended as well. This could be necessary to be inclusive of any new definitions and regulations ultimately created and adopted related to bathhouses, adult bathhouses, and/or adult sex venues. While there does not appear to be any conflicts with state health laws, according to the city attorney's office, the city would need to work with the state to create an exception to Minnesota statute section 617.23, indecent exposure, in order for these venues to be operated legally in Minneapolis. And of course, depending on how the council decides to proceed, any introduction of new regulations would need to be first reviewed by the city attorney's office to determine consistency with state law. Considerations moving forward. Minneapolis business licensing staff said that they are currently working on an outdoor wood-burning sauna license. They explained that when licensing a business, they look at the core use of the business. A bathhouse or adult bathhouse would need to be licensed according to its core use, which could include pool, sauna, or other applicable licensing such as food, alcohol, etc. According to the same staff, many codes are based on the need for insurance and public safety. Existing adult entertainment establishments in Minneapolis are generally an endorsement on an alcohol license, not their own unique license. Endorsements are a kind of subcategory of a license, which clarify extra things businesses are allowed to do, such as stay open later than usual, provide adult entertainment, sell liquor on Sundays, that sort of items. Minneapolis Health Department staff shared that if bathhouses, adult bathhouses, and/or adult sex venues are allowed to operate within the city, they would like to see regulations or licensing to ensure the safety of both patrons and employees. These would include very specific guidelines for preventing disease transmission, ensuring sexual activity is consensual, ensuring employees and patrons are 18 years of age or older, and reducing the possibility of human and labor trafficking. Health Department staff explained that having some applicable licenses or regulations would be helpful to provide the opportunity to enforce safety measures and for complaint follow-up from patrons or employees. In considering the removal of Minneapolis's revision or removal of Minneapolis's high-risk sexual conduct ordinance, Health Department staff also highlighted the importance of their responsibility in fulfilling the duties described in Minnesota Statute 145A, in particular to prevent the spread of communicable diseases. Going forward, there is an opportunity to work with Minneapolis's Health Department, business licensing, zoning administration and enforcement, and the city attorney's office to determine what regulations and/or licenses would be necessary to safely and legally operate these businesses. There are many state statutes and local ordinances that could help inform detailed regulations. Next steps could include the following. Number 1, revision or removal of Minneapolis's high-risk sexual conduct, indecent conduct, and disorderly houses codes. This would be necessary to allow adult bathhouses and/or adult sex venues to legally operate within the city. Number 2, work with the state to create an exception to Minnesota State Statutes Section 617.23, indecent exposure. This would also be necessary to allow these businesses to legally operate within the city. The remaining options are contingent upon the city addressing the codes and statutes outlined in options 1 and 2 on the previous slide. As example cities discussed show how these types of establishments can exist without specific regulations. However, there's also precedent to create a range of regulations specific to these establishments. If legal barriers are addressed through options 1 and 2, Council could consider the following additional options. Number 3, these businesses could be defined and added to existing adult entertainment zoning codes. And/or number 4, the city could create unique additional regulations or licenses specific to these types of businesses, such as San Francisco has. This could include unique and/or overlapping regulations for bathhouses, and adult sex venues. That is the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to respond to any questions that you may have.
Thank you. I don't see folks on queue, so I'll just start off by saying thank you so much for the presentation. I really appreciate the thoroughness and I guess steps that this body in particular could take if we want to go down this route. I know that Council President Payne and Councilmember Jenkins have been working on this and really appreciate the presentation you all gave us. I mean, for me, I'll just keep my comments pretty brief, but the lack of, and I would say the banning of these sites has led to, like, you know, LGBTQIA discrimination, and lifting and creating a process for these to exist is, I would, in my opinion, believe it's not only a thing we should be doing, but it's also a pro-LGBTQIA thing that we can do. So I look forward to seeing the route that Council President Payne and Councilmember Jenkins I guess, gear us towards. So thank you so much. We have Councilmember Palmisano on queue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I was curious at the beginning of this presentation what the genesis of it was. I actually had thought that it had something to do with a couple of years ago there being an illegal sauna in the city and it getting shut down because it wasn't meeting requirements of being indoor. And so I thought that the work in the policy and research we were doing was more about just what would be acceptable requirements to put, to make wood-burning stoves, essentially multiple of them in one area, safe for the community around that area. But since you remember better than I do that this came and stemmed from Council President Payne and Councilmember Jenkins, can you say a little bit more about some of the intentions? Is it to come up with a ordinance or policy around sexual-oriented bathhouses, or I'm not sure what lens to look at this through, is what I'm saying.
I think this probably started with the bathhouse stuff, and I believe that is in Ward 13 where the issue arose from. I guess based on this presentation, it seems like staff is already figuring out some route regarding that particular issue. My understanding, at least my conversations with Council President Payne, I haven't engaged Councilmember Jenkins on this particular issue, was to get a comprehensive overview of this and tie it specifically to Minneapolis and just figure out if there is something that we want to do in regards to this. And I think given that this is the first time we're hearing the presentation of it, I think it's up to this body to decide what route we want to go towards. But I don't have an answer to that particular question. I think we can follow up with Council President Payne after this. I particularly appreciate that it's comprehensive to see the different routes that we can head towards if we decide to go through that. But my understanding was to get a more comprehensive overview, seeing that the issue that occurred in Southwest in this bathhouse, I think it opened the conversation to see where else is there room for policy issues to be decided. So.
And Mr. Chair, I appreciate that. I just want to make it clear that the issue that happened in Southwest, there was never a question as to whether it wasn't or was LGBTQ friendly. It was purely about air pollution. So this is no different than like the wood burning pizza stoves kind of conversation, except that there were many of them in one area that was making our air sensors go crazy. So I just don't want there to be the sense that there was some sort of discrimination in that particular establishment. There wasn't, to my knowledge. There was never an allegation of that, to my knowledge. But I am curious if through your policy and research, were you at all looking at the environmental impacts, like the air pollution kinds of impacts of wood-burning saunas, and how we might mitigate that?
We were not looking at the specific environmental impacts. It was more about legalizing these types of establishments in regulations and ordinances and how they are regulated around the country. Certainly, we would be happy to follow up with another request relating any environmental concerns around these.
Okay, thank you. More for future thoughts, but truly the environmental air pollution is a concern with wood-burning saunas, no matter where they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Palmisano. And for me, I don't know the situation that happened in Ward 13 that well. What I do know is that bathhouses and the banning of bathhouses in particular has been discriminatory in the past, particularly when it comes to the community I'm a part of, which is the LGBTQIA community. So my comments aren't directed at the situation in Ward 13. It's directed at no matter what we do in the city, it has implications for different communities that folks may not be a part of. And I think what I appreciate about this report is that it's comprehensive. It gives different directions and implications and thoughtfulness, and also being careful about what route we decide to go if we decide to go towards a route. I wasn't an author of this staff direction to PAR, but I supported it when Councilmember Jenkins and Council President Payne brought it forward because I found it interesting. And I also know that this impacts my community that I'm proud to be a part of, and hearing this update is helpful as we look to the future of whatever route we want to go towards. But I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Awesome. No one else is on queue. So next up, and thanks so much for being here, our next discussion is receiving and filing an annual report relating to the Minneapolis Tree Advisory Commission. Come on. Thank you for your patience. Just introduce yourself.
I guess I'll use this mic. Chair Chavez, members of the council, I appreciate you having us present today. My name is Giuseppe Marari. I'm a co-chair for the Minneapolis Tree Advisory Commission, and we want to present to you the presentation that we presented to the Minneapolis Park Board about a month ago. So a little bit about our group. The Tree Advisory Commission was established in 2004 to enhance the Minneapolis urban forest and improve its long-term health. It is comprised of citizens as well as appointed members from different disciplines that are essentially tree lovers. So that's kind of that's our jam, trees. I want to go through the agenda real quickly and talk about, we're going to talk about why trees matter, some of the accomplishments from the past year, some of the challenges that we've recognized, as well as some of the recommendations that we brought forth to the park board. So real quickly, why do trees matter? I'll get to a little bit more detail in the next slides, but essentially trees help mitigate the effects of climate change. They deliver socioeconomic benefits, and they do improve public health. As far as our infrastructure against climate change, the canopy is one of the biggest things that we have that mitigates climate change. So a dense tree canopy, it cools the city via shade, but it also cools the city via evapotranspiration. Trees are part of a large ecosystem. You have birds, you have beneficial insects, you have animals that use the trees as part of their ecosystem. And below ground, trees prevent erosion of soil. They absorb water, they prevent runoff. So they're kind of a key part of our battle against climate change. Trees also deliver socioeconomic benefits. They beautify our city, they make people want to visit, they bring economic development. You have businesses that want to be in areas that are attractive. A healthy canopy does lead to higher property values, and more desirable neighborhoods end up having better canopies, more trees, just a nicer place to be. On top of that, and I think this is probably something a little bit more close to this group's heart, is trees contribute to public health. They don't give us Wi-Fi, unfortunately, but they do give us oxygen, so that's kind of important. They filter the air we breathe, they mitigate noise, they provide a calming effect to our community, and I don't know about you guys, but I'd rather sit under a shade tree than under hot sun on top of cooked grass. So it brings people outside. And I want to talk about some of the accomplishments of the past year. So for the most part, the state of the public urban forest is healthy. Private property tree planting is increasing, and we've seen valuable trees get saved. What does that mean? So in 2024, 9,600 trees were planted. The tree species diversity has increased, and in doing so, it helps mitigate against diseases and pests that take out an entire culture of trees, so we don't lose an entire street of ash trees or elm trees. We're doing a lot better with that. 90,000 tree waterings were achieved in 2023. I don't know if you remember 2023, but it was exceptionally dry, so that was quite the accomplishment. And $100,000 was generated through the city's carbon credit offset program. And I do want to give props to Sydney. She worked with us quite a bit. The city and MPRB secured over $8.5 million to help property owners with condemned tree removal. That's a big deal. And also there was a line item added for a 20-year assessment option for tree removal. So trying to help the citizens in dealing with diseased trees. The City Trees program also distributed a large amount of trees, 1,300. A good amount of them were in green zones being areas that need more trees. And we also had commercial property owners take advantage of this tree program. So pretty proud of that. And we also are really happy with the new forestry preservation coordinator role. So this role evaluates park board projects and says, hey, move this slide over, save this tree, or if you're removing this tree, please plant this many trees in its place. Really trying to be very cognizant of the greenery around the park and during construction projects. With that said, we do have challenges. We do have threats to the urban forest, and we brought them up to the park board. So, high level, plain and simple, there's insufficient funding for the annual tree purchase. The park board's canopy, as much as it's doing well, it's under constant threat. And then the canopy managed by our own citizens is also under threat. So I'll talk about that. MPRB set a goal of replacing trees at a 2-to-1 rate by 2026. In order to do that, we need to plant 10,000 trees a year. 10,000 trees costs $1 million. We have the capital equipment, we have the staff to plant those 10,000 trees. And up until last year, ARPA funding, so the park board set aside $500,000 as a line item for the trees, and there was an additional $500,000 put forth by ARPA that made up the $1 million for the trees. That funding ended. So now there's $500,000 to plant 10,000 trees. The math doesn't necessarily work out. So that's one challenge. The other thing is, I love our parks. I love going to Lowry Park and going to Pride, and everyone does. There's a lot of people there. And all those people, they're enjoying the trees, they're also walking on the soil, they're compacting the soil. That affects the health of the canopy. The compacted soil is an issue. We're also dealing with invasive species in park forests. There's over 1,200 acres of natural areas that just kind of get rampant with buckthorn and disease and things that our boulevards also face. And then climate change, again, it threatens the vitality of those boulevards, of those parks, and of those natural areas. And then the other big thing, external agencies are removing trees without consultation. So one of the examples, I think this is 47th in Chicago. You got a tree-lined street, nice and shady. And then where'd the tree go? I'm a big fan of public transit. I'm part of the Citizen Advisory Committee for the Blue Line. Public transit is essential, but why'd that tree have to go away? I'm trying to figure out, is there a way to preserve the trees and still have a bus stop? Maybe where that bench is, it could be under a shade tree instead of kind of outside the area. These are things that we notice that we want to bring forth and say, hey, something's going on here. And then again, the private urban forest is challenged. They're dealing with the same diseases, but they have to pay for their tree removals. And when they are obligated to remove a tree, they have to pay for it. They get frustrated. The communication hasn't been the greatest. And it kind of discourages them from planting additional trees on their yard. If a tree is that expensive to remove, why would they want to plant another one? So it's a big burden. We want to bring that forth and really recognize that. So what do we do? What are the recommendations? And it's down to three things: fund the urban canopy, protect the urban canopy via policy, and expand the urban canopy with private citizens. How do we do that? Well, we have all the ideas, right? We want to fully fund the budget for trees. So that $1 million needs to be a line item for MPRB. As it stands, we have a forestry department that does a fantastic job trying to figure out what kind of trees to plant, how they're doing, and now they have to figure out how to find $500,000. They shouldn't be the ones looking for the budget to plant those trees. They should be worried about getting those trees in the ground. So to visualize, for the past 10 years, we've done a really good job finding that extra $500,000 and getting those 10,000 trees in. This is the moment we get to decide, do we want to meet the goal for MPRB's 2-to-1, or are you going to make the forestry department scramble and try and find more money? So that's what we presented to the MPRB for for that item. The other thing that we want to recommend is adding a line item to park fees or park event fees to incorporate some sort of soil decompaction process. If you use the park, enjoy the park, love the park. If it's a big event, there should be steps taken to mitigate the damage done to the park. We also want to support requests for additional resources for tree watering, more watering trucks, more tree watering. I know this year, it's been a very wet year, but at the end of this year, we're starting to dry out, and that's critical time for trees to get ready for the winter. We also want to protect the urban forest via policy. We got to talk to Met Council, we got to talk to Hennepin County and MnDOT. If a bus stop has to go in, I support the bus stop, but I would like to talk about the trees around the bus stop or any infrastructure. There should be some sort of requirement to consult with professionals about the trees that are being affected. We want to enlist and encourage park keepers in watering trees, and we also, we want to define MPRB's role in supporting healthy ecosystems, whether it be in the natural areas or on the boulevards or in the parks that everybody knows about. And then the private urban forest is probably just as big, if not bigger, in our canopy or our potential canopy. So we really want to engage with citizens and make sure that they have all the resources necessary to plant more trees. And we also, we established a subcommittee in the MTAC to talk about the communication to citizens regarding emerald ash borer and the removal of condemned trees. And we brought forth additional recommendations in a separate note to better engage citizens when it comes to not only emerald ash, but Dutch elm disease or future issues or future diseases that will affect our urban canopy. So, and then we also want to expand outreach to landlords, public housing sites, and businesses to encourage tree planting. Just keep engaging, keep growing the urban forest, not just via the MPRB, but also via private citizens. So, again, in conclusion, we really got to fund the urban canopy. I want to protect the urban canopy with policy, and I really want to expand it, or we do. It's not just me, it's a big group. So I appreciate your time. I welcome questions. We have a few additional members that can help add color to the discussion. So thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation, and thanks to the Minneapolis Tree Advisory Commission. Councilmember Rainville is on cue.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the very thorough report. Just a couple of questions.
Sure.
This concept of, and I agree with you about Loring Park is getting loved to death. Mm-hmm. In fact, I understand there's probably some older trees that their roots were no longer getting the nourishment they needed, the water, and they had to be removed.
Yep.
So how would you decompact soil around a tree?
That's a good question. I'm an engineer, so I'm going to actually defer to Philip, who's part of the forestry department, that can talk more scientifically about that. There are ways, so.
Hello, council members. I'm Philip Patyandi, Sustainable Forestry Coordinator at the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board, representing the Forestry Department at Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board. So there's a couple different ways to decompact soil. One of the methods is to aerate the soil or to fracture it with air compressor, like a real large, there's different like air knife or soil knife that can fracture the soil and loosen it up. There's even introducing, encouraging more microbiological action to be happening can also loosen up the soil. So if we have getting more organic matter incorporated into the soil can also help. And mulch around trees is another method. So we're looking at some pilot projects to try out and sort of figure out what the best methods are. But it does take investment when you've got so much traffic over these areas that it's not just going to the soil won't just heal itself with so much work, so much activity. So we really need something to happen to mitigate.
Okay, so, and first of all, I have to take a point of privilege here. I didn't recognize you in the back there, Phil.
Hey.
Phil worked really hard in our neighborhood with the Main Street tree replanting, and you look good with the new unshaved look. So, And just a quick suggestion that perhaps when you do look at a pilot, you could look at Dickman Park. I mean, the kids have loved that to death over the years, and that it's a smaller area, so that might be a good one. And I hope you're taking a lot of bows for how well the trees are doing on the Main Street median with that new concave, with the cooperation with Public Works. They're just growing like crazy because they're getting that little bit of extra moisture, so. Thank you so much.
And a lot of good love from the community over there.
Well, we're trying over there northeast. Thank you. And I just, one suggestion for the group, the picture of the Metro Transit removal of the tree is very telling. It seems like the county and Metro Transit are working very hard to put in these bus rapid transit, and yet when they go through an area, it doesn't seem like they're overly sensitive to planting more trees when they have that opportunity. The sidewalks all tore up. But yet I look and look and look, and I'm thinking particularly of East Hennepin and First Avenue, but I'm sure there's other areas. Do you have a relationship with the county when they redo these roads that they're planting trees?
I'm going to defer. I don't think we have a required relationship, and that might be the issue, is.
So they ignore you because there's not a statute?
As far as I know, there's not a requirement for them to discuss the effect of the improvements on the canopy. And
Okay.
I'll introduce my co-chair, Tim Keene, and I'll let you speak.
Thank you, Giuseppe. My name is Tim Keene. I am the co-chair of the Minneapolis Tree Advisory Commission, and that is one of our important initiatives now and into the future, is to how can we stitch together the various governmental agencies to be more mindful. Every public improvement project has an opportunity to save a tree or to plant more trees. And we need the legislative bodies to lean in. This Minneapolis City Council to lean in with Hennepin County, to lean in with the Met Council, MnDOT. Make the message known that trees have to be at the top of the priority of every design element when these new facilities get built, replacement facilities. You as trustees of city investments can equally look for opportunities to save trees, to plant trees. And whether it's a proclamation, a resolution, perhaps an ordinance, we need to lean in and be more affirmative in our efforts to save and plant more trees.
Thank you, Mr. Keene. Do you have your group have any, direct line, formal relationship with the county yet? Anyone, sir? Nothing?
No, we don't. We are an advisory body. We have really no authority other than as advocates.
Okay.
But we would like to see the various legislative bodies and agencies work more closely together, looking for opportunities to improve and expand our canopy.
Well, if you two could please keep in touch with me, I'd like to help you on that, and maybe you could start by having Elmer the elm tree go up and visit the county board at some meeting to make them aware of trees. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Are those all your questions, Councilmember Rainbow?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And I did want to acknowledge that Council President Payne is back, and also we are joined by Councilmember Cashman, who wanted to maybe ask a few questions or make a few comments.
Thank you, Chair Chavez. Yes, I'm not on the Public Health and Safety Committee, but I am the appointee from the City Council on the MTAC. So congratulations on a great presentation. Very, very clear, very to the point on what your recommendations are, what our recommendations are. And I just want to speak a little bit to the tree saving in public works projects. I actually went out to the Hennepin Avenue project in Uptown last week with Public Works, and I want to give a shout out to their project manager from Minneapolis Public Works, Adam Hayo, who the first thing he told me when I got there, I said, "What are you most excited about this project?" He said, "How many trees we've saved." So they actually were able to move the bike lane path to avoid trees. And then I said, wouldn't the bike lane path then wouldn't the roots of the tree that you saved kind of run into it? And they said, no, we use this technology to make sure that the tree roots go down instead of up so that the bike lane won't need to be repaved due to cracking from the tree. So I think it's a great example of Public Works innovating and really taking the community's feedback on the tree canopy on this street is really important and needs to be saved. And they took that feedback really seriously in the Hennepin Avenue project. We can look to that as an example. Perhaps ask Adam Heo to one of our meetings to talk about the strategies they used and then how we could advocate for other jurisdictions like the county and Met Council to do the same. So thank you for that. I also, Councilmember Rainville had the same question about Loring Park. How would you decompact the soil after an event? And so I appreciate learning about that. I think that this Tree Advisory Commission really does an excellent job of educating folks, and I know that we all need to work together on educating our public on watering trees because people don't realize how vulnerable they are in the early stages of their life, and the rainfall is not enough. And although, they're in the public right-of-way, it's all of our responsibility as citizens and residents of the community to actually take responsibility for the trees in our public right-of-way. And even though we had a very wet summer, it is getting drier now in the fall. And so this is a call to action to anyone who's listening, is water the new seedlings, the new trees in front of your house or your apartment, and take responsibility for that because trees do so much for us in our city, so we need to give back. Thanks.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Next up, we have Councilmember Palmisano.
Oh, I thought you were ahead of me, Chair Chavez. Oh, that was for
I was, but I just want to make sure you're able to speak.
Sure. Thank you. I want to appreciate that Councilmember Cashman now serves on the Tree Advisory Committee. As of last week, when I ran into Jeremy Barrick, he mentioned that there were, I think, about 300 trees still needing pickup after all of the storm damage that we've endured this past summer. There are an incredible amount of trees that we've lost in southwest Minneapolis. I'm afraid that we might not be net positive this year because of the amount of rain downing so many trees and healthy trees at that. But on a positive note, I want to point out that something that we've been getting and messaging and I've been trying to do personally is to try and promote the Minneapolis tree program, the 25 or 30, some of them are $35 trees, but they're an amazing deal. Mm-hmm. And until September 30th, they can be ordered through, it's through Tree Trust, but there's a site on our city website to mostly fruit trees are the ones that are still available, but fall planting is really a thing, and you can really get trees back into your yard or into your yard for the first time for a pretty low price, and then pick up is mid-October. So I just really want to do everything we can to get as many of those trees out as possible. I am concerned about how we are losing trees, relatively speaking, on private property. I also learned way back when it used to require for certain types of loans 2 trees on a property. That's why we have so many mature trees on some of our smaller lots with, the Sears homes and et cetera. They had to have 2 trees on them to qualify for mortgages. And I'm curious what we're doing to help promote that other than the help with tree removal on private properties. I've been part of my work in MTAC became part of Green Cities Accord. I know that they've been focused on tree canopy expansion in public and private partnerships and also in carbon offset programs. So I'm curious, how do you see the future of carbon offset work? How does that fit into the future of our city? Does it, from your perspective, fit into the future of our city?
So I'll answer the carbon offset, and then I'll probably call Sydney up to talk a little bit about education on when the trees are removed, what we do to educate citizens on maybe replacing the tree or offering the replacement trees. So as far as the carbon offset program, I see that as something that should continue, but that should not be the crutch that we the income from that carbon offset program should not be part of the baseline budget that is necessary for the 10,000 trees that need to be planted. And to your point, we might be losing trees at an even higher rate, so that number might have to be adjusted. So I don't know if that addresses your question enough.
Yeah,
But
well, here's another thing. I know that just last week, the levy by the Board of Estimate and Taxation was raised by exactly $1 million, and it was for Minneapolis Park Board purposes. So where does this sit on the priority list? And perhaps Council President Payne would know more because he was a full part of that conversation, and I only heard a part of it from the Board of Estimate and Taxation, but I don't think that tree planting was considered a part of that $1 million raise of the levy as proposed by the mayor. I don't believe it was for planting trees next year.
that I'm not sure. And that's a good question. So I'll have to find out.
Yeah, if we can get a staff memo on that, that'll be helpful. My understanding is that that $1 million was specifically for youth and the park board workers, but we can follow up on administrative follow-up with that.
Okay.
So I guess the question to clarify then, Mr. Chair, would be where is tree planting as a priority on MPRB's budget? Where are we going with it?
Perfect. Thank you.
And then, would you like more information on what happens when trees are removed from Sydney, or are you satisfied?
I think I know what happens when trees are removed, so I appreciate that, and I'm already in close collaboration with Sydney. I will end by saying I am really excited about some of the potential that Sydney Schaaf is working on with others on a tree preservation ordinance, to some of your earlier slides and some of the examples that I've offered in the recent past. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Councilmember. And those are going to be my comments too about your engagement with Sydney and our health department on the tree preservation ordinance. And I know there's the process. I think there was something released on September 9th, and the engagement process will hopefully begin soon. I know there's interest with Councilmember Palmisano's office. I know there is interest in my office and a few other folks of what that could look like. I think for me, what I'm very interested in, whether it's through an ordinance or not, the EAB issue that we're struggling with, making sure we're preserving trees, but also not impacting some of our areas in Minneapolis. I'll talk about North Side, talk about the Phillips area, where we're having a lot of these trees. We want to preserve trees in these areas. They
Yes.
deserve it for a better clean air in our city, but also that cost is also impacting residents with surprise bills that they didn't expect, right? So that's also another conversation I'm hoping we tie into that in the future. So I don't have any questions, but just want to thank you for your presentation and the work that you and the Tree Advisory Commission is doing for our city, and really thoughtful presentation, so thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, members, we have our next, seeing no further questions, I would direct the clerk to receive and file that report. Our next discussion item is receiving and filing updates relating to Safe and Thriving Communities Action Plans. I'll pass it on to Vice Chair Wansley, who will speak to that item.
Thank you, Chair Chavez, and I see the presentation is about to get uploaded in just a few seconds, but many of you will recall that this past August, we had an update on the Safe and Thriving Communities report and 10-year plan in this committee about how we were going to approach the support of implementing it, as we voted on as part of this committee's work plan. So there's been lots of conversations that has been had with the administration since that update in August, and we just wanted to make sure committee members were kept in the loop as well as the public. So we can go to the next slide. So just, again, quick background on what this plan is, how we got here. So committee members and the public might recall that in 2021, this body approved funds to contract with Leadership for a Networked World at Harvard University to craft a comprehensive plan around public safety. And many of you also know the lead researcher for that has been Dr. Antonio Oftelli, who has curated that report, and that plan has come before this body to give presentations and to engage the public around how do we move into this new era around a comprehensive public safety system. From that, in June of 2023, that was formally presented, that plan and report was formally released to the public with the mayor and Dr. Oftelli and a number of partners from Leadership for a Network World, sharing, what this meant in the era of, at that time we were dealing with the MDHR legal settlement agreement, and really, the conversations was focused on how do we get the police department back into compliance with human rights law, and knowing that the DOJ consent decree was coming forward too, and knowing there would be that component of getting in compliance with civil rights law. So lots of focus on police, but we also know this body has been leading and investing in public safety alternatives, not just solely focused on law enforcement, that has yielded successful initiatives like BCR, our Behavioral Crisis Response Team, also known as our mental health 911 dispatch. We have safety ambassadors, violence interrupters. We also now have social workers in every single one of our police precincts. So we have integrated so many additional public safety initiatives to be part of our crisis response system, and giving our residents more options. So really good work, and Dr. Oftelli helped to give us a vision around, okay, how do we build a infrastructure around this, and gave us a 10-year plan on how to do that. So from that, through June 2023 through August of 2024, which we had our last update, we've seen through presentations through this committee, the various aspects that's being implemented of the Safe and Thriving Communities report and plan. But again, it has not always become or has been readily clear that it is connected to that 10-year action plan that is at the very back of that Safe and Thriving Communities report. So that has led to a lack of understanding of, like, is this really our plan amongst the public? Are we just piecemealing things? We had a conversation just in budget a couple weeks ago where our clipboard came before us to give recommendations, and also said that, we're unsure what is the plan behind our public safety facilities and how is it aligning with a broader comprehensive direction. And these are all questions and concerns that could easily be addressed if we would move forward with a formal adoption of the Safe and Thriving Communities plan and report, as we've done with other key issue comprehensive plans like Climate Equity Plan, the Transportation Action Plan, both 10-year plans that outlines the city goals of how we're going to become a more climate resilient city. Also, as we just, slightly had some conversations around, but also a multimodal city that supports, multiple use of transportations. So we've talked about this process over the past summer, coming into now the fall, of what that formal adoption process will look like. We also made sure to open up a comment period for 45 days just to hear feedback from residents around how are you, receiving this new direction, this plan, this report, because it's been not super consistent of how we've centralized this as part of our public safety direction when we're in public spaces. So we have the comment period. Next, and I've already talked about, the significance of having a comprehensive plan and moving towards a formal adoption of the plan that's in or as part of the Safe and Thriving Communities report. It's very clear that our residents have asked us for a plan when it's come to our public safety system. And it's significant in the sense that with those plans, we know we have a unified, vision for where to go when it comes to our public safety system, as we do with other plans. It creates the same level playing field for both the executive side and the legislative side, in knowing how we're going to work together when it comes to our public safety initiatives. It helps us to figure out how best to measure progress and how we're reaching those goals. It creates, again, opportunities for us to effectively do oversight, because there's timelines a part of it. There's clearly identifiable lead departments, as we've seen with the Transportation Action Plan. So we know who is doing what timeline are we set to complete things, just like we heard with the tree advisory presentation. They want to do 2 to 1 by 2026. We want to have those same clear goals when it comes to our public safety system, and oftentimes it's not clear when we do this work. And then most importantly, it allows the public to hold us accountable on how we're delivering measurable and meaningful actions when it comes to making our neighborhoods and communities safer all across the city. And that helps to build trust too, when we're, centralizing clear action steps with our residents of how we are going to help them become safer. So with that, we can go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, we have been in many conversations with the administration, specifically the leadership of the Office of Community Safety, to explore what does it look like, again, to do this formal adoption, knowing that there have been parts of this work that's been implemented, but it has not always been consistent and clear that this is connected to our overall plan, a 10-year plan. That's part of this report. We hear about the report, we hear about the recommendations, not about the plan. So we want it to be unified. So we wanted to, make sure that we're working in tangent with the administration on this. And we wanted to also have this process done originally before we walked into the 2025 budget process. So once again, we're not trying to piecemeal public safety initiatives that we've been doing for the past several years, and that it gives our residents the sense that we have a disjointed approach to our public safety system, and that's not the case at all. We do have this robust evidence-backed plan, and it would have been great if we could have walked into 2025 saying, hey, phase 1 of this 10-year plan says we need to be looking at funding these actions. Cool, let's move forward with that. Unfortunately, again, we didn't have that. And as of now, the recommended budget provided by Mayor Fry for 2025 also did not include new spending proposals to support the specific projects included in phase 1 or even phase 2 of the Safe and Thriving Communities plan. And I do want to clarify, we've heard about funding allocated for the South Minneapolis Community Safety Center. That's a capital project that's being funded using capital dollars. But there has been no new spending allocated towards supporting programs and initiatives that's based in this plan to be integrated at that site or at any other site. So I wanted to make sure we were clear on that too. We don't have any funding for these initiatives going to 2025 outside of what council will ultimately bring. So next steps. We still want to hear from the public in the community around, your thoughts about the plan. We've made it publicly available on LIMS. It's also on the city's website. We are recognizing that the leadership or OCS leadership is planning to do a 1-year engagement plan that they'll be sharing with us at some point. But we really want the public to have more awareness about this phenomenal plan that we've developed around our public safety system. We're also going to have a legislative directive come back to this committee on November 20th that gives us updates on, what's the status, or state of progress as it pertains to implementing the specific components of the plan, specifically the initiation phase and phase 1, how the administration is looking at timelines. So again, we can track, year to year, what progress is being made, what areas are we falling short in, and what areas are we really thriving and doing well in. So that legislative directive will come back on the 20th and give us a lot of information to sit with to get a sense of, the status of implementation of this plan. We are also still in conversations and awaiting confirmation from OCS leadership on whether or not they will advance the formal legislative process for us to adopt this plan and for the administration to formally recognize it as their plan as well. So we're hoping that this is an easy yes. It should be, as again, we've done this with every single other critical issue at the city, from housing to transportation to climate. It would make no sense for us to not also adopt a plan that we already have and have funded to guide our work and to guide, our sense of understanding amongst our residents of what this new system will look like as it pertains to public safety. But as we're still awaiting for that confirmation from the administration, there are some options that council can pursue in light of the administration not pursuing adoption formally of this plan. We can pursue an oversight and an evaluation plan, thanks to our new legislative department division of oversight and evaluation, to make sure that we are tracking the plan that's included in the Safe and Thriving Communities report. We could also adopt a resolution of support for the plan. So there's a multitude of ways in which we can state our formal support of this plan, and note that this is where we're seeing, the next 10 years play out in terms of how we support this work of having a safety system that goes beyond policing. Some other good things that have come out of these conversations with the administration is they've agreed to provide additional updates. On November 6th, OCS staff, as well as the New York University Policing Project and Dr. Oftelli, will be coming forward to give us a presentation on the recommendations they've developed from their city safety service gap analysis. So this is where we'll hear about additional safety alternative initiatives or programs that we should be looking to integrate into our public safety system. So we'll get those recommendations, and that will provide clarity, again, for us as council on what we should be looking to fund as we reconcile the budget this December. And then on November 20th, OCS staff will provide a much more comprehensive update on the overall plan, and will give a full report on that gap analysis, research analysis or research study that they're doing with the New York University Policing Project. So it will have the full shebang there in addition to the recommendations. So again, that hopefully will set us up really well as we go into 2025 and knowing what additional work we need to be doing to advance and support the implementation. So I just wanted to make sure, again, we're having all the same level of information being shared and showing that we are making some progress with the administration as we support them in implementing the Safe and Thriving Communities action plan, the 10-year plan more specifically. So with that is all.
Thank you so much for that update, Vice Chair Wansley. I'll look at the queue. We have Councilmember Palmisano.
Chair Chavez, I'm a little confused as to why my colleagues giving this report instead of Director Harrington or Commissioner Barnett, as both are here in the room. And I also didn't see this presentation on LIMS. So this presentation isn't even available to the public. But before it does get made available to the public, I'd suggest these slides get fixed, as it keeps saying OSC. And I was confused, but I get from the context of Councilmember Wansley, she means the Office of Community Safety. But since we have staff from OCS here today, Commissioner Barnett, could I ask you to speak to the administration's commitment to this work, to the Safe and Thriving Communities work, and how you are embedding accountability to this work in your efforts? It seems to go to Councilmember Wansley's point here.
Welcome, Commissioner.
Good afternoon. I'm sorry. Excuse me. Good afternoon, Chair Chavez, Council President Payne, other council members. I think this is a place where we have a lot of agreement on the Safe and Thriving Community Report. Councilmember Palmisano, I had the opportunity to speak with Councilmember Wansley, also Councilmember Chavez, about the Safe and Thriving Community Report. I think we've been moving in a good direction in collaboration on what the goals are and where we should be together on that. So I just wanted to say that part of it. I think that what Councilmember Wansley said about the NYU Policing Project report is a pivotal moment for us. It's a very important report for us to give us more direction, and also they'll give us some recommendations on the gaps in asset analysis. I know there's a reference to the budget in the commitment from the administration. The administration is committed to the Safe and Thriving Community Report. I've talked about that early on once I was confirmed by the council. I might even mention it during my meetings with council members that this is a blueprint for us. This is a report that Director Harrington has been following in her implementation, in her presentations to council. She's been available to all council members in providing that information. I think where the funding comes into play here is that just like we look at the settlement agreement I'll use, or the consent decree that's coming, there's several departments involved in that. There are several departments that Director Harrington's been working with specifically to get this work done. I know that when we look at, trying to look at the platforms to be used for data collection, that draws in our staff from IT. That's not under the Department of Community Safety, but on the other side of the house. When we look at PMI and the work that they're doing, those are just on the top of my mind, some other departments that we have tried to tap into as we move along. I think that one thing in talking to Director Harrington, and I hope she's okay with me saying this publicly, but just like we see the NYU report that's coming out, we had hoped that this report had been, or the report would have been given to us earlier, but there were a couple of things, so no one's fault, that as we moved along, it just took some time to get some things in order. And the comment or the phrase that I'm going to use that Director Harrington has used with me is that this work doesn't neatly fall in line with the budget process. That as we move along, to Councilmember Wansley's point, we want to get this right for Minneapolis and our residents and visitors, and be more comprehensive as we look at this. We know how important this work is to the success of building a strong foundation for our safety here in Minneapolis. So I think there's some things to specifically to your question, hopefully, Councilmember Palmisano. I think there's other ways in which we're using other departments to get the work done, that it doesn't show up in the budget directly, but we're using their resources to move along and get some things done. Hopefully that answered the question for you.
Yeah, I think it answered a little bit about how we get accountability into this. You also pointed out just how multidisciplinary this work is. I know we're all eager to support it in every way possible.
Right.
You mentioned Director Harrington. I see her here. And Director Harrington, I know you're doing a lot of work engaging with residents and others on what future pieces of our city's safety ecosystem looks like. And you give us regular updates, and you offer briefings in between all of your regular updates that we could all choose to take advantage of. I'm curious if you or maybe Director Harrington could explain how that engagement will help us build out future proposals. It already has, from my perspective, from the briefings that we've received. But that kind of engagement is critical. I think adding more might confuse people as to where we're at. But could you explain how that engagement will help us build out future proposals? And help us
I'll
with
let
this
Director
ecosystem?
Harrington answer that question, but I think what you will see in the budget proposal by the mayor is that there is some money in there to continue the engagement. Director Harrington has done some engagement also with her staff in this area as well, and she can talk about some of the future engagement.
Good afternoon, Amanda Harrington, Director of Community Safety Design and Implementation in the Office of Community Safety. The engagement that we've done has really been focused in the geographic area of South Minneapolis around the safety centers, but we've also taken the time when we've been doing that to start educating people about the Safe and Thriving Communities report and the ecosystem, because that's where we need to start. I think Councilmember Wansley is correct in that people don't necessarily understand the Safe and Thriving Communities report, and that has to be a significant basis of the 2-year community engagement and communication plan that we're working on right now with NCR, communications, and other departments in the city, so that we can have both internal stakeholders within the city, our other governmental partners, and individual community members on the same page about what do we mean by the Safe and Thriving Communities report, what do we mean by an ecosystem, and by community safety when we've used phrases like public safety for so long. We will continue to do that larger engagement, but I think one of the critical pieces from that, aside from common understanding and language, is it also helps us figure out where do we prioritize? Because that Safe and Thriving Communities report includes a lot of activities, and we will get to them, but we can't do them all at one time. And so some of the engagement is helping us decide where we can pilot things, where we can shift priorities on collecting data, or starting with different activities within the city enterprise as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we have our next presentation coming up soon. I can pass it to you, Vice Chair Wansley, but I'll just make a quick comment, at least in my perspective as the chair of this committee and someone that is really passionate about this work. I think my preference is that we go towards a shared vision and adopting a comprehensive plan, because I believe our residents in the city deserve a comprehensive approach and a plan that is saying that we believe in safety for all residents, no matter your skin color, no matter your socioeconomic background, and that you matter in the city of Minneapolis. If we're willing to have comprehensive plans for every other topic in the city, but we're not willing to do it for public safety, I think that sends a bad signal to our residents. However, my commitment to the public and to this body as a chair of this committee is that if we do not go towards that approach, and if the mayor is unwilling to work with council on adopting a comprehensive approach to public safety, that we're going to have oversight and evaluation component through this committee, through the council, to make sure that these programs are getting implemented. So that's 2 routes we're going here. We're going to head towards. We can either play oversight and evaluation over this plan, because I am tired of seeing bodies drop to the ground in this city, or we can head towards a comprehensive approach, because we believe that not only is transportation important in our city, but so is community safety. So I guess that's what the comment I want to make today, that we can head towards 2 routes. And Commissioner, for my comment for you, it isn't, I'm not expecting a response, but I hope that as the leader of safety from the administration side, that you can work with the council, and I know you've shown commitment to do so, and saying that this is the direction we'd rather go towards, and it's a comprehensive approach. Let's work with council and mayor, rather than say, council, go do oversight because we have concerns, right? So that is my request.
Chair Chavez, I think you've seen a commitment from us with the access that council members have had with Director Harrington. I think it's unfettered access. No one has to ask me permission, not that you need it, but I'm just saying that we've been really open with the work that she's trying to do. And I think sometimes it's a little overwhelming for her, but we are committed to working with the council because this work is important. And I think we all want the same outcome. And I think that we all are trying to get there. We might sometimes disagree at the process maybe or how we get there, but like I said earlier, I do believe that we're on the right path. I do believe that we're doing everything that we can to work with council and provide them the information on where we are with this work. And we're committed to the work.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay.
I'll pass it to
Yes.
Vice Chair Wansley, and keeping in mind that we have one more presentation.
Yes, I'm so
left.
sorry.
Thank you,
I-
appreciate
Yeah.
it, Commissioner.
And I know Rachel will give a quick comment, but what I do want to solidify is, verbal commitments are great, but the benefit of having the climate equity plan or the transportation action plan or the 2040 comprehensive plan is regardless of who inhabits these seats or at the mayor level or even at the commissioner level for the Office of Community Safety, we know that work will be carried out beyond us. It will outlive us. It will shape the work of the city enterprise regardless of who's in these seats. And we currently do not have that for public safety because we did not, like those other critical areas, did not adopt this formally. So right now, for the past 2 years, since this has become introduced into the public space, we have only been operating on verbal commitments from the administration that we're going to stick to the plan. And I notice we keep saying even just the lack of consistency there. There's a report, there's a Safe and Thriving Communities report, and then there's a 10-year plan that gives us clear phases on how we should be advancing this work. Of course, we can have flexibility and change and be nimble based off of priorities that's coming up, but it literally gives us a 10-year guidebook or map on how to actually build a solid infrastructure around a new comprehensive model of public safety. And it just doesn't make any sense that we have not adopted it formally like every other critical issue. So it does get into the space where if we left or if leadership left in the Office of Community Safety and that verbal commitment was not honored by whoever else comes in following you, then it does not automatically mean this work is going to move forward. So that is what's at stake. We want something that's going to outlive us. That's what our residents want. And this is a clear framework, a 10-year plan that can get us there. And I will also let Rachel clarify some comments that Council Member Palmisano raised as to why the presentation was now on limbs. And also to clarify, we're more than able to give presentations on this body. Maybe some other committee members have not done that themselves, but we are able to give presentations on legislative work that we are moving forward with. And there are legislative components, if folks read the plan, that this body has the ability to advance to make sure our communities are safer. And that's what we adopted as part of this committee's work plan. So I'm giving a report and updates on that. And if there's other priorities that committee members supported as part of that work plan, you can also do the same. But I will pass it to Rachel.
Chair Chavez, Vice Chair Wansley, and the body. I just wanted to clarify that I did not add the presentation because I tend to get a lot of last-minute edits on presentations as a whole, and then when I put them on and it says version 1, version 2, version 3, I find it confusing. I have gotten feedback from residents that it's confusing. So if I misunderstood that this was a report instead of a presentation, or I'm happy to take feedback, but I just wanted to clarify that it was not at Wansley's office's. They got it to me well in advance. It was not at their discretion, it was at mine.
Thank you. Appreciate the feedback, and we really need to move to the next topic. Julie, sorry, Director, and congratulations on your new role. But I will receive and file that report. And then congratulations on your new role. I'm sorry we have a little bit of time, but basically today we just wanted to get a little small update on the community and safety outreach program. Figured this body would love to know more about this program and one of the good things about it.
Space yet, so. This is where I plug my dog. And this thing will work. Yes.
Thank you, Director.
And we will go here. And I can just switch. Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Chavez, Vice Chair Wansley, committee members. I am Julie Ann Lynham, the Director for Economic Policy and Development for Community Planning and Economic Development. Newly minted. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of the Community Outreach and Safety Program, as well as a quick SWOT analysis that I put together. So for background, this is a pilot program. It was started with ARPA dollars in 2022 with about $1 million investment. These are pilot programs that will do living wage jobs for residents to do community safety in their own neighborhoods. Current partner organizations there are listed, which is Cedar Riverside Community Council, Northside Residents Redevelopment Council, and the SECA Group, which is a very, very long name. It's also a Northside organization supporting and empowering equity and community through collaboration, advocacy, and access. In 2023, this was moved as one-time funding to the general fund, and we had a total of about $1.12 million. We issued a request for proposals in 2023, and we selected these 3 organizations to continue. The first year was only the 2 large organizations, CRCC and NERC. We just recently came through the AO committee as well as full council contract extensions through the end of, we'll go probably through the end of August to September of next year. And that is with 2024 general fund dollars. The program goals are pretty well stated in our, when we did our RFP, which is to provide high-quality training in a variety of alternative strategies like mediation, crisis intervention, overdose intervention, and de-escalation. Provide mentorship, internships, and employment for community residents who are unemployed or underemployed or sometimes difficult to employ, and interested in law enforcement, criminal justice, private security, violence prevention, or other related fields. And improve community safety in neighborhoods that are most affected by crime and livability concerns. And on that second bullet, I would add that oftentimes these are individuals who have criminal histories who otherwise have very difficult time finding employment because of those histories. However, they are working hard to improve their lives and want to give back to their community, but also need to pay the bills. Our partners are, did my mic go out? No. The partners operate in a way that is most responsive to their specific communities. So the common themes are they all have a lot of training and professional development, but NERC's model is a little bit more about neighborhood livability. The CRCC is working a lot on peer recovery, so the opioid epidemic that has reached into our East African community is a high priority. And the SECA group is really more about youth development. And their award was significantly smaller, so they aren't able to do the on-the-ground outreach as to neighborhood as much as they would be able to if they had more money. The methodology for the program is to hire community residents at a living wage, better than a living wage in many cases, to work in their respective neighborhoods to provide community safety services. They provide extensive training to prepare individuals for employment in a variety of professions. The ones I listed earlier, obviously, but they're just getting that professional development makes a big difference. Excuse me, and to deliver outreach and safety services tailored to the needs of their neighborhoods where those individuals are employed.
So some highlights here from our partners are the Cedar Riverside, 3,500 hours total of work, including 1,850 hours of outreach. They established a 24-hour hotline for community members to get information about services and access other supports. Then these other two are individual examples of specific work. Community beautification, so they help clear out Blessed Street Park in the fall and then help with planting in the spring. And small business assistance, where they assisted a small business in the neighborhood to move their entire business, basically, and then help with flyering and giving out information to push customers into that new business. On the north side, we have the NERC has, they hired and retained 11 community safety specialists and 2 leads in the pilot year. You can see the wages are $19.50 to $23.50 an hour. And all of those individuals are licensed EMTs and mental health responders and have CPR certification. There's 10 part-time mentors, so those folks are paid at $33 an hour for 15 hours a week. Extensive job training on community engagement, incident documentation. I mean, I can't even list the amount of training that these folks have gone through. They've done personal development training as well, so that's a really core important thing for NERC, is that the individuals are actually developing themselves as people. So one of their unconventional things is everybody's part of the Me and I gym on the north side that's in the 1256 Penn building, because taking care of your body is important. So that's one of the more unique things that they're doing. They've held community meetings with a total of 165 participants, secured 29 block captains, which is a pretty big deal these days because we don't have a lot of block clubs anymore. Provided life-saving measures to 5 residents who were victims of gun violence, traffic accidents, or having health issues. And most recently, they are providing support for North High at dismissal. Finally, we go to the SECA group, which is very youth-focused. 75% of their participants are young people. 60% are under 21, 60% of that number under 21, and 25% are 45 to 50. So there's also a bit of an intergenerational component. They've done monthly workshops for participants with topics like trauma, community engagement, and mindfulness, life coaching for all participants. And they have also just reported from their own surveys that their participants feel much more engaged, personally developed, and able to show up and do good work in their communities. And next I'll go to the SWOT. So, and again, preliminary findings, this is a pilot project, so we've allowed a lot of flexibility in how they deliver their services. The strengths are high-quality employment, training, and professional development for neighborhood residents who've been unemployed or underemployed. Living wage jobs and high rates of employee retention. The residents perceive their community to be safer and more connected. Culturally competent service delivery, which is incredibly important, and unique neighborhood-specific model. So it's not a cookie. You can't just take what you do on Northside and put it in Cedar Riverside. That doesn't work. So the weaknesses, visibility, this is sort of a common thing we've heard. We don't see them, or is the language. So I think there is definitely a need to increase awareness of what they are doing, and I'll tie that to the second point here, which is, actually, maybe it's the third, that sometimes people believe that they're supposed to be doing work that they aren't. I'll give you an example of that later. But kind of a need to just get more information out into each neighborhood about what they're doing. The perception, the example I would give you is I got a complaint about one of these programs that there were people actively using drugs, and that our folks were not approaching them. And I understand that residents' frustration, but that's not something that we have asked them to do, is actively approach people who are actively using drugs, although they do a lot of recovery work in Cedar Riverside. Again, one of the potential weaknesses is that it is a pilot project, and because of that, we're trying new things, but sometimes people are very impatient, and that is understandable in community when you're dealing with safety issues. They want to see results now. Opportunities, definitely potential for more underemployed or unemployed people to obtain high-quality training, professional development, and living wage jobs. Obviously, we can reach more staff or reach more community members if more staff are added. And there's an opportunity to operationalize an innovative approach to community safety that's marrying jobs and training and community safety. I think this is my last slide. So the threats. Sustainable funding. Program is costly. And it's relatively inexpensive, but it is expensive. It's about $500,000 a year if you want anywhere from 8 to 12 people working full-time. It doesn't fit neatly into an employment, public safety, or public health framework. So that's a possible threat because people sometimes just can't wrap their mind around it. What is it? Organizational capacity. This is the one I would spend the most time on. These are very small organizations in general. They lack infrastructure around finance, human resources, fundraising, all of these administrative things. And so that's a struggle for them to manage the program as well as all of these infrastructure needs. Neighborhood politics. I think everyone probably knows what that means, but that's, who knows who in the neighborhood and who's rivals, so that can, and who are who's friends, that can play a role. And also the competition for funding. And finally, that there is we need to do more with collaboration across different programs that the city funds, but also programs that we don't fund of this community safety space. And I think it's a common theme that everybody doesn't know what everyone else is doing. We don't know who to call. So there is a need to work on that. And with that, I thank you all. I will stand for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Director. And again, welcome to your new role. We're really excited for you.
Thank you so much.
What we're going to do for questions, because we are out of time, is if members have questions, to please either send them to me or send them, and then I can help facilitate those and send those questions to you, and then I'll work with Rachel to try to get those up on LIMS for administrative follow-up, just because we are a little bit over 6 minutes. But
did I do 10 minutes, though?
You did great.
That was my goal.
You did. You helped us out here. So
thank you so much.
I guess my thing is, if members have questions, to please reach out to my office, or they can reach out to you directly. But
perfect.
If there's administrative follow-up, we can work with the clerks. If not, totally great. Very thankful for the presentation, the work that you and your department are doing. So with that, members, seeing no further questions, I will direct the clerk to receive and file that report. And seeing no further business before us, I will declare this meeting adjourned.